And a pleasant good afternoon to everyone out there in Irish Breakdown land. I am Vince D'Addario. I am the football analyst at irishbreakdown.com. And that guy right there, that's not Brian Driscoll. That's my guy, Sean Davis. And he's been nice enough to join me again to talk about everything that is college football from over the weekend. And, of course, we are going to chat about some Notre Dame football. And just going to have some fun for the next hour. I'm really looking forward to it. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing wonderful. Hi to all the Irish fans out there. Hey, first quarter, we're 3-0. That's all
right.
That matters.
Bottom line, right?
All that matters.
And it's funny how we have to keep reminding everybody of that. Look, has it been pretty? Not really.
No.
You know, there's been sparks, there's been good things, but bottom line, 3-0. It's a good thing that. And we broke down the schedule, all summer, and we talked about it. And it's a good first quarter for Notre Dame. It's a chance to, figure some things out, get things going in the right direction. They got through it. Now it's going to get interesting, right? I mean, it Wisconsin, Cincinnati. I mean, this is where it gets the rubber meets the road, as they say, for Notre Dame.
Yeah, this is one of those seasons that you look back. I truly believe one of those seasons you'll look back at this time of this season, and you'll realize when you're the number 1 or 2 team in the nation in a year or two, this is where it started. This is where the foundation was laid with all the young players that are getting playing time. It's growing pains. We understand that. We understand the frustration that all the fans have, but just be patient and understand that something is being built and they have a plan. The coaches, Brian Kelly and everybody, they do have a plan in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to see that plan come to fruition a little earlier than, maybe some people are thinking it might happen. But, we'll see what happens. Again, 3-0, that's a good thing. So let's dive, first of all, into the Brian Kelly press conference. It just got over a couple of minutes ago, his noon Monday press conference. A couple of takeaways. Number one, Prince Kollie will be available to the team this week, which will be great. They're going to work him out today at practice, see where he's at. Brian Kelly specifically said he's looking to get him in for J.D. Bertrand, give J.D. a little bit of a breather because, look, I think Sean and I can both agree that J.D. has been friggin' amazing at will linebacker this year, but he can't play every snap. And it's a long season. You need somebody to give you some respite, and they're hoping that Prince Kollie can be that guy. So the Prince Kollie era is upon us. I'm pretty fired up about it.
As all fans know, you love seeing the manifestation on the field on game day of what you hear over the summer.
Yeah.
About certain players. And we heard about this kid always being around the ball and making plays over the summer. And to see it show up, on game days, on Saturday. It's absolutely amazing. He's a playmaker. He's making plays all over the field. And as you guys talked about, the linebacking core was much better, much better against Purdue. And hopefully we realize and we'll see that continued growth on a weekly basis. I just think the team overall is getting better.
Yeah. Better. I think so. It's incremental steps for the offense. Obviously, some guys just didn't have a good game yesterday. I think we can both agree on that.
Yeah.
And I want to get your thoughts on Notre Dame in just a second. I'm trying to think of some other things from the Brian Kelly press conference. He did mention Rocco Spindler is getting a lot better. That's the first time we've really heard his name brought up.
Yeah.
So does that mean we're going to see him in a game? I don't know. He said Michael Carmody looks like he may be back, so there's going to be maybe a rotation between him and Tosh Baker at left tackle. I think we're going to see guys coming in and out on the offensive line. I think that's just kind of where we are with the offensive line. But again, as you mentioned, that's something that can propel them into the future. A lot of young guys are getting time. Joe Alt, I thought he played really, really well. And Brian Kelly mentioned him as well. They've got 4 tackles right now in Carmody, in Baker, in Fisher, and Alt that they love. They love all 4 of those guys. And he basically said, those guys are going to be playing for us someday. They're not all necessarily ready yet, but they're all going to be playing someday. That's good news.
I think in all 3 press conferences that we've seen on Mondays, the one thing that stood out is we haven't seen Brian Kelly in previous years give much credence or conversation to freshmen being on the field. So from a recruiting standpoint, I think an adjustment has been made by Brian Kelly. Mm-hmm. We saw him make an adjustment in 2017 after the 2016 season that allowed the program to get to this point. And I think he's heeded the advice of some people in the building. And in order to continue to close the gap on the likes of Clemson and Alabama, you have to be able to play your freshmen and get them on the field.
Sure.
And get them to get ready earlier. Just from a depth standpoint, it's really good. And I think, as I said before, that is the plan. Let's get these guys ready. It just so happens the season that we're in, he said transition multiple times also in all three press conferences. He believes this is a transitional year. I believe that as well. If you can win 10 games in a transitional year, that bodes very well for your program. And like I said, we'll look back at this season in another year or two and say that was the foundation of a number one or number two team in the nation going into a title game. I really believe that. I think Brian Kelly is becoming even more of a CEO. You saw him on Saturday sitting down with the offense while the game was going on, sitting there in the chair saying, look, let's get this done. Let's get that done. And I just love that side of him. Now, you talked about the offensive line. I believe in the young talent. I believe when they recruited them, both of us thought, yeah, these are some really good players that he's getting on the offensive line. The question is the development, right?
Absolutely.
Are they being developed? Are they being taught? And one of the things you have to talk about is going from practice and taking what you learn into the game and being able to adjust on the fly. You're young. We expect mistakes, but can you learn from those mistakes, depend on your fundamentals, and then go play?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think you guys talked about it in one of your shows this weekend. You saw more effort.
And that's step one. I mean,
absolutely.
I would have liked to see that in game one, obviously, but we're starting to see it. And that's a good thing, you know. And when for example, Zeke Correll was good, he was really good.
Yeah.
Now, when he was bad, he was really bad. Those good need to outweigh the bads, and they don't yet, right? Yeah. And that's kind of where we're at. So, you know, things are getting better, but they need to get a lot better, a lot quicker because they've got Wisconsin in 6 days, 5 days now, right? So I see a comment over here I do want to address from Justin. He says, no mention of whether Botelho has gotten up to game speed yet. He needs to be on the field at least as a depth player on defense and not just special teams. So, Justin, you got to remember they haven't practiced yet since the game. So that question, I guarantee you, will be asked on Thursday during Brian Kelly's press conference. That's after they've had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday's worth of practice. Maybe not Thursday, but Thursday's really just a walkthrough anyway. But they'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday under their belt. They'll have a better idea of, you know, what Michael Carmody's role might be, what Botelho's role might be. They haven't had practice. They haven't even seen the guys yet this week. So they don't know if he's up to speed. But I agree with you. Botelho needs to be in on defense. He just adds depth across the board. He can do things that the guys on the defense can't do. And the defense is still really good. So, you know, you add him and they get even better. So Justin, just keep that thought in your head because we all want to see Botelho on the field, right, Sean?
Yeah, he's going to get back. And Brian Kelly mentioned the same thing. I think he was asked about, you know, did he mention or say anything to the players on Sunday about their performance? I think it was the wide receiver core he was asked about specifically. And he was like, no, we give them their day off. I won't see them until practice. And then at that point in time, we'll talk to them about the improvements they need to make. But every player on this team knows what they need to do to get on the field, to get more playing time. And I expect Jordan's no different. He knows he needs to get himself in shape, not only physically, but mentally, to be able to go out there and give them some positive game reps.
Absolutely. And he gave him positive reps on special teams. So that's step one for him, getting him back to where he needs to be. Because, you know, you guys got to remember also, you know, they knew that they weren't going to have him available to them early on in the season. So he didn't get a ton of reps in fall camp. I mean, he was with the third team. The third team doesn't get the same amount of reps as the first team or the second team. So they're going to start adding to his volume and they're going to get him back to where he needs to be. And they weren't really sure when they were going to get him back. So they couldn't have him taking reps from guys that they knew they could get on the field et cetera. They were playing that game, that unknown game, but now they know they got him back. Now they can start increasing his workload. So I'm as excited as anybody to see number 12 on defense get in the game. And speaking of number 12, offensively, number 12, Tyler Buckner, they seem confident that he will be available on Saturday. It sounds like if it was an emergency situation, they might have been able to bring him in this past Saturday, but just kind of strain that hamstring. That's something you don't want to mess around with, especially from a guy who his thing is running the football. And so you want to make sure he's going to get treatment. He's going to get better, but you want to make sure he's right, or else he's not any good to you. I mean, you don't need him to come in and throw the ball. You need him to come in and add a spark to your offense running the ball.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that he's right first.
The football guys, they're funny, right? Because this should be the Jack Cohn game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is his game. This is his week. Brian Kelly tried to deflect, but Jack Cohn really wants this game. And his teammates really want this game for him. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. They're going to go out there. They're going to play football the right way. But in the back of their minds, they're going to have a little extra motivation to support Jack Cohn to get the victory. And other than that, I just think that Tyler Buckner was going to be more important for the Cincinnati game from a scheme standpoint, in my opinion. I believe Jack Cohn and this offense can go out and do everything necessary to get a victory over Wisconsin. But I do think you need both guys to give Cincinnati some fits because of the style of defense that they play, which is similar to what we've seen from Notre Dame's defense.
Sure.
They want to be disruptive, and to have somebody that can be that changeup off of the fastball that is Jack Cohn, that bodes well to get you some big plays and throw Cincinnati off and get them on their heels. So let's, rest them up.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Get him right.
Make sure he's there for Cincinnati. But if you need him in an emergency, heaven forbid, nothing happens to Jack Cohn and he stays healthy throughout the entire game, Notre Dame should be fine at that position.
Well, and, obviously we're going to talk more about Wisconsin as we move forward, but you got me excited here, Sean. So, I love Notre Dame's defense. I think they're going to hold that Wisconsin offense in check. I really do. And I'm going to dive into the Wisconsin film starting probably tonight or tomorrow. And but if Wisconsin can't score, they can't win. You know what I mean? And look, Wisconsin's defense is really, really good. But so are the skill guys that Notre Dame has. Yeah. And it may not look pretty all the time, but Notre Dame they're going to score. And if the defense does what I think they're going to do, the offense just has to hold up, kind of their end of the bargain, and they get this victory. That's how I see things. And look, Jack Cohn has outplayed Graham Mertz so far this season, and really hasn't even been that close. So,
absolutely,
if it's a tail of the tape situation, I'm glad that we got Jack Cohn and they got Graham Mertz right now, right? Yeah. So, we'll see what happens, and we'll dive into it more as we go.
If you're going to hop into that Wisconsin film, make sure you have 2 Mountain Dews. You're going to need something to help you stay awake.
I know, right?
Not much to it, but, going into this game, it's important that we realize, I pointed out the last time I was with you, that the team that I thought, and I'm sure we'll get to the rest of the college football landscape.
Sure.
I just want to throw this in there. I told you about how impressed I was with Penn State's offense and that Sean Clifford missed multiple opportunities to get big plays against that Wisconsin secondary. And I think the same thing will happen for Jack Cohn and his wide receivers. There will be multiple opportunities for big plays against this secondary. If this offensive line can just hold up maybe for another half second, that's all.
Seriously, yeah.
Let's improve a half second from Purdue to Wisconsin, and I see 2 big plays in the passing game that should lead to touchdowns and be the ultimate difference in this game.
Well, let's talk about the Purdue game because we want to get your thoughts on what you saw. But I tell you what, I don't see Avery Davis. I'm sorry, not Avery Davis because he had a great game. I don't see Kevin Austin or Braden Lindsey combined both having as bad of a game in one game as they had on Saturday. I just don't see it. They've been too good for too long, making plays, doing what they need to do. I don't see that being the case. And we talked about it yesterday. Notre Dame has 6 legitimate threats in the passing game that they can go to. You got the 2 running backs. You got Michael Mayer. You got Braden Lindsey, Avery Davis, and Kevin Austin. That's 6 legit threats. And 3 guys were nowhere to be found because they took Michael Mayer away. Kevin Austin didn't have a catch, even though he was targeted 8 times. And Braden Lindsey dropped the touchdown in the end zone, right? So 3 guys that were nowhere to be found, and yet still Avery Davis steps up, does his thing. Both running backs stepped up, did their thing. You've got weapons. You've got that. That's my biggest takeaway from the offense. I want to get your thoughts on just the Purdue game in general, wherever you want to go, Sean. The floor is yours.
It's amazing because Jack Cohn has to have a glimpse of what it was like being Tom Brady in New England, right? To have this big guy at tight end each and every week, that's a mismatch, a nightmare for defensive coordinators. And he's going to get doubled, and they're going to try to take him out of the game. And all of your running backs and wide receivers just end up running wide open. That's it.
Yep.
And all you need is time. That's what it was like with Tom Brady and Gronk, and that's what it's like with Jack Cohn and Michael Mayer. It's the same thing. And when you have talented wide receivers with speed, we talked about it. You guys talked about it. How many times were Braden Lindsey and Kevin Austin open by like 4 or 5 yards in the Purdue game? Had their guys beat. Plenty of opportunities. So it's not effort. The opportunities are there. They're playing hard. Yeah, they struggle to get off bumper run every now and then. In the middle of the game, Kevin Austin did make an adjustment. Outside release, they were stopping him, and he got inside and went up the field a couple of times. One time, Jack Cohn just overthrew him. So I think they'll watch the film. Hopefully they'll watch the film. They'll get coached up this week, and they'll improve and get better. I don't know if Wisconsin's defensive backs are going to be as aggressive as Purdue was. Purdue was very aggressive, but I didn't think they would be that aggressive with their secondary. But they pretty much just said this is the only way we're going to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
We have to blitz, pressure the quarterback, get him off his spot, and bump and run these guys and mess up the timing of this offense and just go for broke. And that's what they did.
Right.
And the opportunities were there. And if we execute each and every game, because we'll have those opportunities because of the talent in the passing game and the skill position players that we have, the opportunities are going to be there. If we execute, Notre Dame should have no problem scoring 40 points, Vince.
Yeah, agreed.
Every week, they should have no problem scoring 40 points. It's all about execution from the offensive line to the quarterback to the skill position players. If they all execute, we're going to score plenty of points.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that defense is kind of the blueprint for how, to affect Notre Dame and their offensive line and, things of that nature, bringing multiple guys and making the offensive line have to pick and choose and things of that nature. But then you're one-on-one on the outside. And yes, they were doing bump and run and they were, rerouting Notre Dame's receivers and things, but it's one-on-one coverage out there, man. That's only going to last so long against these guys. I'm just saying, watching it from the stadium, watching those wide receivers do their thing, they were behind. They got steps on those guys multiple times. And if the safety is in bracket coverage over the tight end and you're going to leave one-on-one with Kevin Austin, Braden Lindsey, and Avery Davis, I like Notre Dame's chances. Let's just put it that way. I absolutely do. And so, we'll see what happens in the future. But if people are going to continue that blueprint of defense against Notre Dame, they're going to have a way to overcome that. I really do believe that.
And salute to Tommy Rees and Jack Cohn for not forcing it to Michael Mayer.
Right.
And using the other weapons. Because the play, I think you guys said it in your post-game show, the adjustment Tommy Rees made with that formation that led to Avery Davis's touchdown, they knew what Purdue had seen on film.
Mm-hmm.
They made the adjustment to go from the corner route to the post, knowing the safety was coming down to double Michael Mayer, and it was wide open.
Oh.
Avery Davis said it on the sideline. He said, as soon as I saw the coverage, I knew it was a touchdown.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a great route. I mean, he stemmed to the outside, comes back inside. I mean, he was open by 5-6 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really, really good route and a good catch and a good throw. I mean, and give Jack Cohn credit. He had a terrible first half. Terrible. I mean, he was throwing the ball on the ground. He was overshooting his receivers. I mean, just not a good first half at all. But the second half
was high too. Everything was high.
Yep.
Overthrow. And it's good to have a guy with poise.
Yes.
That's played a lot of games, came out the second half, directed his focus and was right back on target. So definitely played a fantastic second half and struggled in the first half. But that's the type of guy Jack Cohn is. And that's a great guy in a transitional year. Once again, in most programs are forced to play Tyler Buchner.
Yes. Yep. That's exactly right. And knowing, Jack Cohn knew now, okay, well, Tyler's not going to be able to come in to help us out, give us a spark, whatever the case may be. It's on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And he responded.
He responded big time.
Yep. 2 weeks in a row.
This whole team responded to Toledo.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the entire team responded to that poor performance a week ago in the same stadium. They came out and, like you said, the defense set the tone.
Yeah.
I think the defense almost came into the game saying, we don't care what the offense does. This is our game.
Mm-hmm.
And they heard about Jeff Brom being a great play caller all week. They heard about the wide receivers. They heard about David Bell. They heard about Anthrop. And they decided we're going to take all of them out of the game. And we're going to dominate this team from our side of the ball. And that's what they did.
Right. Outside of a couple of mistakes, they had the corner fire by Clarence Lewis. And if he hits that tackle, it's a tackle for loss, number one. It's not a 32-yard gain.
Perfect call, right?
It was a perfect call.
Yeah.
Perfect call. He just needs to execute it.
Yeah.
Right. So, here's what, we were all calling for what? Eliminate the big plays, right? And play a complete game. They did that. Like I said, if he makes that tackle, it's not a 32-yard gain, but it's also not a 65-yard gain like they were giving up in the first two games. They had 4 of those, right? Yeah. And then they didn't let Purdue score the last 22 minutes of the game. So, complete game, check. No big plays, pretty much a check. You can call the 30-yard run a check, a big gain. I get that. And then the very next play, it felt like is when the David Bell had that pass interference, but he also caught the ball, right? So 2 semi-big plays right there, and that put him in scoring position. But other than that, 13 points against this Purdue offense, I'll take it. I will take that.
You talk about those 2 plays, and that's not even the most frustrating. That wasn't the most frustrating play for me. The most frustrating play for me, they had Purdue backed up. I think it was a great punt. They got them on the 1-yard line, and I think it was a 2nd and long, and they let Anthrop get loose down the middle of the field. And Jack Kaiser has to get just a little bit more depth. Now, I couldn't see it. I wish I had the end zone view to see it, because it looks like he bumped into the umpire there.
The official, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how much that affected him. Mm-hmm. But knowing that they had to pass at that point, it's like, get a little bit more depth and deflect that away. There's no way he should be able to split both linebackers and get down the field for that big play. But other than that, like you said, you have to live with big plays. This is college football. The other guys do have D1 scholarships as well.
Right. So, good point.
You can't shut them down for all 60.
Good point. Very good point. I like that. Okay, so Notre Dame's 3-0. Again, that is the bottom line here. Yeah. Big game on Saturday. The tension ratchets it up. The talent level on the other side of the ball ratchets up. It's a big game. And I think we're going to learn even more about Notre Dame after this game. And continually, right? Because you've got Wisconsin, then you've got Cincinnati. Those are 2 right now huge games on this schedule. I don't feel necessarily the same way about North Carolina, USC, things like that as I did prior. These 2 games right here are absolutely huge. So we shall see.
It speaks to the multiple ways, or it will show if your team can win multiple types of games.
Right.
Different types of games.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The word they use is slobber knocker. Slobber knocker. In the home of George Halas and the Chicago Bears, where defense wins games and offense is at a premium. And we're going to have that same type of game. And Brian Kelly talked about it. I think he called it Wisconsin, the Big Ten version of Navy almost.
Yeah, because they want to possess the ball. Yeah, right.
And you have to score touchdowns. Can't score field goals. You have to score touchdowns. They're going to keep the possessions down. They're going to run the ball, and they're going to maintain time of possession. So when you get the opportunities, once again, there will be opportunities for big plays in this game.
Yep.
And when you get them, hit them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hit them, Notre Dame will have control of this game and should be able to handle Graham Mertz and that offense, which really doesn't have too much creativity. I think they might have a couple of tricks up their sleeve for this one because they're going to have a lot of red in the stadium. Technically, it's a home game for them.
Yeah, right.
Early start, 12. It's a 12 noon start, I believe. So
yeah, 11 o'clock your time.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little chilly. Won't be as wonderful as the last two games in South Bend. It's going to be about 65 and a little windy coming off that lake. So
I'm sure.
Yeah, so I just expect a physical game, but I expect Notre Dame to go up. They're the better team. They are the better team. Just go out there and be the better team, and they shouldn't have a problem. Of course, we're not the ones on the field, right?
No, they don't want me on the field. That would not work out well for anybody.
No one's hitting us. So it's easy for us to say just go out there and just be the better team. But no, in all seriousness, Notre Dame should be able to win this game because they're the better team.
Agreed. We got a super chat I want to get to before we jump into the world of college football. Patrick Barnes, thanks, Patrick, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. He says, in his press conference today, Brian Kelly talked about an O-line rotation because guys were tired. Is an O-line rotation a normal thing for teams? No, it is not a normal thing for teams. Yeah, so he talked about the guards getting tired, and he talked about Tosh getting tired. You notice he never said anything about Patterson getting tired or Lugg getting tired because those are the veterans or whatever. It's ridiculous. He never mentioned the offensive line getting tired last year. It's kind of a smokescreen for we need to get some other guys involved because of the play. Yeah. It has nothing to do with being tired. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Vince, let's just go ahead and translate it for him, right? In any sport, what happens when you get tired?
Yeah.
As a player, you start making mistakes, mental and physical.
Sure.
So in translation, he's just talking about, hey, guys are not being good. We have to get other guys in there, and we'll just mask it as them being tired. It's performance.
Yeah.
It's performance-based, and they know. They look at the film. I would like to say Kane Madden has taken a lot of backlash from fans.
Oh, yeah.
And he's earned it.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. He's earned that backlash.
He's wearing it. Yeah.
He's wearing it. But on that touchdown run, he had a really good block.
Sure.
On a long run for KW. So,
when he blocks down,
yeah,
he's good. When he has to go forward, it's not so good. Or when he has to get out in space or get to the next level, not so good. But when he's blocking down, that plays into his strength, and that's what they did on that play. So, yeah.
And it's I guess I don't know if that's a matter of talent or if it's a matter of because some guys they can get this one fundamental thing, but if you ask them to put that fundamental in another situation, they can't perform at the same level, and that's across all sports.
Sure.
Vince, you're a coach. You try to get guys to go to the left and keep their legs down and don't let the ball, get through their legs. It's like every time you go this way, you struggle, but when you go this way or come forward, you're fine.
Right.
Same thing in football. Like you said, if he blocks down, he's very good. If he has to go forward and push that player back, I don't know if he needs to do some more squats or whatever it is. Get that anchor set, but whatever it is, hopefully he can make improvements. If not, you might see Kristoffer in there a little bit more or some of the other youngsters. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
Youngsters ready to play. Like I said, growing pains, but you'll look up in game 8, 9, and 10, and you'll be saying, okay, we're averaging 4 to 5 yards a game now.
Right. Absolutely.
That's what we want.
Well, look, and Kane Madden, he's a one and done, right? So he's not going to be here next year. So, of course, I want him to improve as the games go on.
Yeah.
But if you can get somebody else in there, get some reps, and they improve as they go on, they're going to be even better for next year, right? So not that I'm necessarily looking at next year. Don't get me wrong. I'm not flushing this season yet. But there's some benefits to getting some young guys in there. And if Kane is actually tired, then there's a benefit to that too, I suppose.
Vince, let me ask you a question because we always talk about this from quarterbacks. Like, when do you put the young guy in? on the offensive line, when do you go ahead and just say, you know what, just let the young guy rock?
For
just
like full time, just full time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. If let's say we're talking about Cade Mann specifically, okay, and his play so far, I would be real close. And I said this going into last week, as far as if I was Jeff Quinn, I would be walking into the meeting room and I'd be like, look, guys, whoever gives me the best effort, whoever's going to be taking the fight to the other side of the ball, you're going to play. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to open up the competition. So, like, we don't know what's happening at practice, right? So if the talent level is way below where Kane Madden is, which I can't imagine that it is, but hypothetically, if it's way below, then you still got to ride with your guy, right? But if it's getting a lot closer and it's starting to become kind of one of these,
right,
then I think you got to ride with the younger guy. I was having a chat with a buddy of mine earlier today. I've got some new seniors that are going to come out for the baseball team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I've got a sophomore who has been with me for a year already, and they got 3 years left in the program, and a new senior, and the talent level's right about here, guess who I'm holding on to? You know what I mean? Because that ceiling is higher. The length of time you're going to be with me is higher. So at some point, if the talent level's right there, I think you got to make that call.
Yeah, and we've been spoiled around here when it comes to the offensive line. We really have.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to a lot of people in the NFL over the last 2 weeks because of our offensive line play. And multiple scouts have told me that when Notre Dame offensive linemen get to the NFL, they usually supersede the expectations.
Right.
One guy I heard about specifically was Mike McGlinchey. Like, they did not think he would be that good. They thought he would end up as a right tackle. They didn't think he would be that good at the tackle position.
Right.
And he's exceeded expectations. I think Zach Martin was kind of on par. Quentin Nelson was kind of on par because he came back and became net dominant. But even Ronnie Stanley was looked at as, he's good, but we want to see, can he be nasty? And you saw how important he was and how he has been to the Baltimore Ravens team and Lamar Jackson when he's there and when he's not there. When he got into last year, you definitely saw the difference. So that goes back to coaching. Like, what aren't they getting?
Right.
They're good at Notre Dame, but why is it when they get this type of coaching at the pro level, they take an even greater step and become better than what most people thought they would be in the NFL? You have to ask the question, what's missing in that variable, or what's the variable there that's missing in that equation?
I completely agree with that. And people can make their own assumptions from that, but I'm with you 100%. Let me tell you.
I tried to keep it as, mystical as I could.
I love it. All right, man. So let's jump into a little college football. Let's start. You want to start at the top of the AP rankings?
Let's do
it. Pretty good game for the number one team in the country,
wasn't it?
Almost got knocked off, man. Yeah. Alabama, Florida. Alabama pulls out the 2-point win over Florida down in the swamp. Started out, got gangbusters. They're up 21-3 after the first quarter. Bryce Young appears to be the real deal, man, after 3 games now. But then that defense is starting to show some chinks in the armor potentially. I tell you what, they can get run on. If you got a good run offense, which I'm not saying Notre Dame does at the moment, but if you've got a good run offense, that might be the way to keep Bryce Young on the sideline, churn out some yards, get some points, and maybe Alabama isn't they're the number one team in the country, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But they're not perfect, that's for sure.
There's one thing that stands out. When you look at the defense for Georgia, let's say, or the dominant defenses we've seen at Clemson, or their defense this year, the one thing that's missing for Alabama that they've always had on their dominant defenses is that one dude right there in the middle of that defensive line.
Yeah.
That's going to mess up everything, whether it's the run play or pass play. They're going to disrupt. They're going to push your guards and centers back into the backfield. They don't have that. Mm-hmm. And I was really amazed the way that Florida was able to reset, come out. They're down. I'm thinking Dan Mullen is going to open it up a little bit more.
Right.
Dan Mullen says, look, we're about to run right at them and establish that we're the more physical team and we're the better team.
Right.
And they did it all second half. If they don't make the mistakes they made, the 2 interceptions and some other things, the penalties early in the game, they very well could have won that game by about 10 points.
Right.
Because they were definitely the more physical team. And you came away from that game saying, yo, if they play on a neutral field and say in the SEC championship game, Florida will have a pretty good chance.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Pretty good chance.
Yeah.
So up the middle, especially at the linebacker position, I don't think they have the linebackers they've had the last 2 years as well. They lose that guy that's, wrecking havoc now in the NFL for Bill Belichick. He's no longer there in the middle, and they miss him. So Alabama, we dare say they're in a transitional year on the defense?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. You could say that. And I'll tell you what, so when we did our prediction show for the season, I'm pretty sure I said Florida was going to win the East over whoever else was in there. But Florida, I think, is a better team than I even thought that they would be. And I give Dan Mullen a lot of credit because, last year they're throwing the ball all over the yard. They're doing all this, and this year they're pounding the rock. I mean, they have changed their identity twofold. I mean, they've completely done a 180 with their identity, and that's coaching. Like, that doesn't just happen, right? And so it's going to be interesting to see what Florida does from here on out. I think that they're a pretty solid team, and I think they're going to give people a lot of trouble moving forward.
Yeah, they had a Heisman Award winning contending quarterback, and then they had quite possibly the best pass catching weapon in all of college football that's in the NFL. So you lose that.
Absolutely.
And Tony's in the NFL as well. Another weapon they had, like you said, coaching, man. He's able. This is the same guy that was at Mississippi State.
Right.
And had Dak Prescott and turned that program, that offense, into an explosive offense and to a top 5 program at one time while he was there. So he can coach.
Right.
He can coach. Now it's just a matter. I think that's one of those games where you have to play Bama and realize, we can beat them. I think when they played them in the SEC championship game, they knew that they could hang with them, but I think they knew Bama was the better team.
Sure.
Saturday, I think the Gators walked out of the swamp saying, we see them, we're going to beat them next time.
Well, and they didn't even they've got that 2 quarterback system going too down in Florida with their dynamic second string guy, a la Notre Dame, right? And they didn't even play him in this game.
Hamstring for him too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
These backups with these hamstrings.
I'm telling you. So they also said that he would have been available if there was an emergency situation, et cetera. So, I'm just saying that was an unused weapon for Florida that they could come back with in that SEC championship game if that ends up being the case. And that'd be a fun one to watch. Let me tell you.
I can't wait for the cocktail party. Now, that Georgia-Florida game is going to be really good.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point because you're going to get smash mouth Florida against that defense from Georgia. And that defense is legit for Georgia. That defense is legit. And I think JT Daniels is starting to figure out that offense a little bit more. Now, we might as well just start talking about Georgia, right? I don't know how good South Carolina is. Obviously, they were 2-1, but they scored 13 points. I have a feeling that was more because of Georgia's defense than it, and then the offense is scoring 40. Yeah. And and they didn't score in the fourth quarter. So they clearly took their foot off the gas as well. So this Georgia team is going to be something to reckon with as well, for sure. Yeah,
Georgia wasn't going to allow any of that Beamer ball to impact them this week. They got right at it early on both sides of the ball. Big plays. They established the run and the pass. And like you said, their front seven, Vince, I have to go back. I've never seen a defense that big and that fast.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of fast defenses that had long-rangey players. But I've never seen a front that big and that fast. When you have 330 and 350-pound defensive tackles chasing down quarterbacks to the sideline, that's a scary proposition for any offensive coordinator in the SEC this year.
No doubt, because you can't spread them out this way.
No.
And they got corners where you're not going to be able to spread them out that way.
Right. So any quarterback, the pocket is collapsing.
Absolutely.
In like 1.5 seconds. So I don't know what you do with that unless you have guys like Florida that can make plays with their legs.
Absolutely. Yep.
That might be, the weapon that ends up being the difference.
Sure. And with a team like that, I mean, you're darned if you do, darned if you don't in a lot of ways against this Georgia defense. But if I've got a running game like I think Florida has, and I'm going right at them, you just got to go right at them, because if you try to get cute and you try to get fancy, they're going to run you down and they're going to make you look silly. So I think you just take it right to them, man, and see what happens. Try death by 1,000 punches, right? I mean, that's what you got to do.
And I think the speed of Alabama's offense had the Florida defense on their heels, but kudos to their defense. They ratchet down in the second half as well, held out Alabama in check, and allowed their team to get back in the game. Because like you said, they didn't get back in the game with big plays through the air.
Right.
They took their time and methodically got back in the game. So when you methodically get back in the game, your defense has to get stops.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a little Oklahoma. They played Nebraska this week, 23-16. Scott Frost really trying to hold on to his job. I don't know if it says more about Nebraska or Oklahoma that this thing was as close as it was. Your thoughts on this one?
I wasn't impressed with Oklahoma.
No, me neither. I
just really wasn't. I thought Nebraska played very well, especially along the line of scrimmage. I think their defensive line is overlooked because of that surprising loss to Illinois opening week. But their defensive line is really good, especially against the run. They really don't have that speed rusher to get to the quarterback. But as a group, they work together really well. And I like the way they set the line of scrimmage on the other side, for their linebackers and the safeties. Oklahoma, I just expect more from Spencer Rattler.
Absolutely.
Like the hype, and you saw the history, the history of Lincoln Riley and all of his quarterbacks. They come to him whether they were recruited or they transfer, and they get better in his offense. I'm not seeing it with Spencer Rattler right now. Mims, he wasn't really getting loose like I thought he would against that Nebraska secondary. And no, I'm just not impressed. I really am not impressed. Nebraska's offense, like I said, it's one-sided. Only thing they can do is really run the ball. Martinez isn't a threat in the passing game. No. And they were still able to move the ball quite well in the first half. Like Nebraska had opportunities to put points on the board early in this game. They just didn't come up with that big play or that third.
A lot of field goals.
Yeah, a lot of field goals. So I wasn't impressed with Oklahoma at all. And I think they should have taken a drop in the polls, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so they're 3-0, so they're gonna stay right where they're at, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, that's when you're up that high and you keep winning, you're not gonna drop, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes, unfortunately. So I mean, again, I don't know if anybody in the Big 12 is going to get to them. We'll see, but I think they're good enough where I feel like they're going to get through the Big 12. But I think if they happen to make it into the Final Four, I think they're going to get exposed. I really do. But that would be a typical Oklahoma situation in the Final Four. So,
Well, just from a tradition standpoint, I think every team has that one game on their schedule where they know that they're better than that team.
Right.
The game somehow, some way always ends up being a tough physical game and going into the fourth quarter.
Right.
For Oklahoma, it's always that Red River shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Like some years, they're like a 20-point favorite, and they go in there and Texas gets them somehow, some way. Turnovers, special teams, big plays, what have you. Kansas State has always been a thorn in the side of Oklahoma for some reason. And then Bedlam.
Right.
So
absolutely.
I think those are the only 3 games what I would worry about Oklahoma not winning, just because of the tradition of those games.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. So I don't think that there's much of a point in talking about Oregon. They played Stony Brook, and then Iowa played Kent State. Both were pretty much blowouts. So let's go to the number 6 team in the country, the Clemson Tigers. And they had to have a goal line stand against Georgia Tech, who is now 1-2 on the season, to defeat the Yellow Jackets in Clemson, right?
Yeah.
It was a home game for Clemson,
Yeah.
and they had to have a goal line stand to beat Georgia Tech. I think as I'm looking at the chat here, everybody, agrees Clemson is just not a great football team this year, and they've already got 1 loss, and they're still this number 6 team in the country, which is.
But they're wasting a great defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're wasting it. They have a really good defense, especially up front. That defensive line is really good.
Yeah. Oh, the defense won them that game.
Yeah.
There is no 2 ways about it. The defense won them that game. They held Georgia Tech to 8 points. And that goal line stand was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Georgia Tech threw everything they had at them to try to get those last few yards, and they couldn't do it. So, there better be some love for that defense down there, at Clemson.
And you think when you know how it is, when you recruit or you coach, you get a young guy in, you see the promise, you project their ceiling, and then you come back the next season and it just doesn't go the way you thought it would. We saw the performance of DJ Uiagalelei at Notre Dame Stadium, and we thought he's the next one in the line of these great Clemson quarterbacks, and it just hasn't manifested itself that way. It just hasn't. He looks unsettled in the pocket.
Yeah.
We do know that offensive line is look, Notre Dame isn't the only big program with problems along the offensive line.
Fair.
Like that makes me feel good. Like, oh, they struggle with the offensive line too. But and Tony Elliott is a great play caller. But when you don't have an offensive line and it's unsettled, you have a quarterback who's unsettled, and then you have all this talent outside, because they definitely have talent at the skill positions, but everything has to work together.
Absolutely.
And right now, they're out of sync as an offense, and we're gonna see what Dabo and Tony Elliott can come up with, because I don't think they survive the ACC schedule, putting up,
which is scary to think about.
Yeah, they're not gonna put up at least 20 with that defense. If they put up 21 points, Vince, they'll win every game. Exactly.
And that honestly, that's how I feel about Notre Dame's defense. If Notre Dame can score 3 or 4 touchdowns, or 21, 25 points, they're going to have a great shot to win every game, the way the defense is playing. Same thing with Clemson. The problem is, they only scored 14.
Yeah.
And Will Shipley, the one that got away for Notre Dame, ends up with 21 carries, 88 yards, and both touchdowns for Clemson, one in the first and one in the fourth. So, that kid is obviously the real deal. He's a great player. But still, he only had 88 yards. And so is the Georgia Tech defense that good, or is the Clemson offensive line that poor? I think I'm leaning more towards the Clemson side of things.
Yeah.
Especially when DJ Uiagalelei only has 126 yards on 18 completions. That's wow. He's either not getting enough time, or they're just dinking and dunking the whole time, because he averaged 5 yards a pass. It's not good. It's not good at all.
We talked about the game plan going into every game for Tommy Rees and how important Michael Mayer is to the other side, knowing, hey, we have to stop this guy. And I wonder just how much. We know Trevor Lawrence, he's number 1 overall pick. Great quarterback, right?
Absolutely.
I think Travis Etienne was a little bit more valuable than maybe they thought. Losing him hurts a lot. Because even when they came into Notre Dame Stadium, who did we key in on? I think that would have been the case even if Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback.
Sure.
Yeah. I think Clark Lee would have said, we have to stop Travis Etienne. We can't let him get loose.
Right.
and then we'll play zone and worry about everybody else and make sure we keep everything in front of us and tackle. So when you don't have that guy, and like you said, Will Shipley's a good player, but he hasn't proven himself to be able to impact how defenses play them as an offense and open things up for everybody else. So it's going to have to come from that offensive line and that run game to open up everything else and to get DJ settled in a little bit more. Because right now he's unsettled, he's unsure. And like you said, he's learning. It's his first time.
Oh, sure, yeah.
As the starting quarterback. So there's a lot of things he's learning as well in these games. So he's going to have to look at the film and get better. He's going to have to become more of a leader, vocally, gain the respect, but it's going to come from that offensive line settling in and Will Shipley becoming to that offense what Travis Etienne had been the previous 4 years.
Sure, absolutely. All right, a couple more games to talk about before we have to roll out of here. First of all, let's see here. Cincinnati, Indiana. So let's talk about this one. Very tight game at halftime. It was 10-14. IU's ahead. Cincinnati rolls out 13 points in the third, 15 in the fourth, which was really the difference because IU scored 10 in the third, but 0 in the fourth. Yeah. So Cincinnati pulls away at the end. I think Indiana may have shown a couple of chinks in the armor for Cincinnati. But, man, the bottom line is Cincinnati is a really good team, and they know how to close the door on teams. And I think that was my biggest takeaway is, I forget who they played the week before, but it was close at halftime, and then they blew them out in the second half. Same situation here, close after 3 quarters. They blow them away in the fourth quarter. This team knows how to put teams away, and that makes me a little nervous for 2 weeks from now.
I love it. You know why I love it, Vince? You talk about the chink. If you're going to play us man-to-man for 60 minutes, please play us man-to-man. Because the speed we have, you can't cover us for 60 minutes. We're going to get opportunities in the passing game. So now in 2 weeks, like I said, can we become half a second better than we were against Purdue, against Wisconsin? And then when we get to Cincinnati, can we become a full second better in pass protection than we were against Purdue?
Sure.
If we can make that jump, the opportunities will be there. But this is the game we need Tyler Buchner, because I saw a lot of bootleg action, a lot of move in the pocket, and a lot of quarterback runs and not quarterback runs, but RPOs that opened up a lot of plays early in the game. Indiana really could have had a much bigger lead in the first half. I think they failed on a fourth down inside the 10 I know of, and I think they missed another one in Cincinnati, on the Cincinnati side of the field where they had another opportunity to put up points after a turnover. So missed opportunities will always come back to bite you in the end when you face a really good team. Cincinnati did prove that they're a really good team to me. Really good team. A lot of offensive weapons. Ritter's going to have to beat me from the pocket. He's going to have to beat me.
Absolutely.
You're not that running around. You're not doing that against us.
Right.
You're not doing that. If I'm
you got to contain him.
Yeah. We're taking that away. Now, if you can beat me from the pocket, I tip my cap and we go on to next week.
Right.
Indiana never did that. They allowed him to do whatever he wanted to. And once he got settled into the game, they eliminated the mistakes. They made a lot of mistakes on the offensive line with penalties early in that game as well. So I don't expect that type of effort, but I think Notre Dame's going to be better. And it's going to be a great game because Cincinnati knows how important that game is.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
That's a mid-season Super Bowl for Cincinnati.
No doubt. And they just beat a Big Ten team who everybody thought going into the season was going to be pretty good, right? And then they get it back-to-back. They get that, and then they get Notre Dame at Notre Dame Stadium. I mean, look, if Cincinnati can beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame Stadium, they're because they're not going to have any problem with anybody else on their schedule.
No,
I mean, that's going to propel them almost directly into the playoff. Yeah, in my opinion. So
there's no way the run game for Cincinnati beats me if I'm Notre Dame.
Love it. Sorry, one more I want to talk about. We don't have a whole lot of time, but I do want to talk about it because I love to bang on Ohio State. Struggle with Tulsa, man. Like, you want to talk about a defense that is struggling right now. It's the Ohio State Buckeyes. I mean, and we'll talk about the Auburn-Penn State game too real quick, but Ohio State, man, somebody needs to take advantage of the fact that their defense is terrible. Somebody has to, right?
Yeah. You don't want to see anyone lose their job, especially not in the middle of a season, but this goes back to having that guy, right? They were spoiled having Chase Young for 3 years.
Absolutely.
Spoiled. Like someone that every offensive coordinator had to look at and say, oh, my God, we're going to be spoiled, right? Because every offensive coordinator for the last 3 years has been looking, saying, where's number 14 at? Right? And next year, who's going to be that guy? We don't know, but we have to find out. And Ohio State is in their second season of trying to find out who's going to be the guy that's going to wreck offenses for us and open up opportunities for everybody else to make plays. And it doesn't seem like they can figure that out. They haven't found that guy. And that guy usually has to be in the front seven. And that front seven has been pushed around. Haskell Garrett, they thought would be that guy. Or Garrett Haskell, he hasn't been that guy. And the secondary for the second straight year, which I'm shocked because they recruit plenty of talent.
Oh, tons.
They have plenty of talent in the NFL in the secondary. So right. I don't understand. It can't be speed talent. It has to be scheme. Guys not fitting in, making the right fits. Guys not making the plays. Fundamentals not being done. The same thing we hear, right, with other teams, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of big plays. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, exactly.
It's across all of college football. A lot of coaches are dealing with transition years and trying to figure out, when they're going to get playmakers and who's that next playmaker for whatever unit on the offense or defense. And it seems like Ohio State is that they can score. Ryan Day is going to be able to score. So that won't be the problem. But last time we talked, Vince, who did I tell you was going to be the problem for Ohio State?
Who was it?
It was Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
I told you. I said they play defense as a cohesive unit. And I think we talked about it. I wrote about it when we gave our predictions for the game. I said Auburn's going to come in and try to bully ball. And they're going to realize we can't push this Penn State defense around. And there you have it. The Big Ten is going to come down to Ohio State, Penn State. That's, for me, Ohio State, Penn State, that's the winner of the Big Ten right there.
I like that. I think that's going to be a great game. I really do. October 30th. Yeah. So, put it on your calendars, folks. That's going to be a fun one. There's no question about it.
Where is it at, Vince? I'm sorry. I'm not looking at the schedule right now.
It's at Ohio State.
Oh, it's at Ohio State?
It's at the Horseshoe. Yeah, it's at the Horseshoe. So, But I still like Penn State. I do, because I think their offense is going to take it to that defense. I just not that Penn State's offense is unbelievable or anything, but I don't think they need to be. So
I love their wide receivers. We know Ohio State probably has the best 2 wide receivers in the Big Ten, but the 2 wide receivers at Penn State, they're pretty darn good.
Right.
And you got Kane in the backfield that can make plays. If Sean Clifford can just avoid mistakes,
that's a big one,
and take advantage of the opportunities that his skill position players are going to give him, you're right. Penn State should be able to handle them.
So let's wrap it up with Penn State, Auburn. That was a heck of a game to watch. It was back and forth the whole game. Penn State scores a touchdown in every quarter, and the difference was Auburn scored 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals, and that's your 8-point difference right there. Yeah. Penn State, man, they came out to play. They used that wide out to their advantage. But I will say, I was impressed with Auburn. I was not necessarily anticipating Auburn to put up as much of a fight as they did. I thought the coaching staff had that team prepared. They were ready. That might have been the best game of the weekend, to be perfectly honest with you, when it was all said and done.
When you look at Auburn, typical SEC team, big, physical on the fronts, I expected that. I thought they would come in and try to bully Penn State, expect Penn State to be a Big Ten team they can push around.
Right.
And they threw the first punch, and when Penn State countered, kind of staggered them, Penn State took over the game and was able to hold on late in the game. But I was comfortable with picking Penn State in this game because I'm just not a fan of Bo Nix. I'm just not.
Sure.
Just not. And when they face good SEC teams, Bo Nix not being able to produce in the passing game is going to be the main issue. Like Bigsby is a great back. He's going to be able to do damage. That Auburn offensive line is going to open holes for him, even in the SEC.
Right.
But I'm just not a fan of Nix. And he's going to hold that offense back the rest of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're going to have to be smash mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have to be because they got to overcome subpar to par quarterback play.
Yeah,
I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, Vince, isn't it amazing? Like the one thing, whether you watch Sunday Night Football or you go back to Week 1 and it's Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs, it's so amazing how easy the game is when you have that guy at the most important position.
You're not wrong.
Right? Because every other team almost has to play a perfect game.
Right.
And there's no such thing as a perfect game in football. You're going to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And the other team is going to make plays against you. It's no against you. There's no perfect game. But when you have that guy, you can play a C game and still win. Because he'll bring you back or he'll find a way to win the game. So
sure. Yeah,
that is the quarterback position. I don't care what level you're at, is so vitally important.
No doubt. And we saw it. Well, we saw it last. If you want to talk NFL, we saw that last night from both quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
And it came down to a fumble and all. I had the Chiefs, man. That hurt me, but that was the 8th game of a 9-game parlay. I had them all right up to that point, man.
Was that the only one?
I had the Packers winning tonight, which I don't think was going too far out on a limb.
Well, they're playing the Lions, so
right. Yeah. I would have been 8-8 after last night, and then 9 out of 9 tonight. But that fumble at the end, I'm like, they're lining up for the field goal. God, man, you gotta be kidding me.
At that point, I'm like, why are they giving the ball to him at this point anyway?
Right.
Like, just let Patrick throw the ball.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Or kick it on second down. I don't care. Why are we fumbling the ball, man? Anyway.
Oh, man, I feel so bad for you.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
We're that close.
Yeah, I know. It always ends up being something. So, I mean, but I had the Cardinals winning, and there was a missed field goal.
They barely won against
They barely won. So it's like I got saved, and then I got tossed, within a matter of a few hours. So, it is what it is. But anyway, Sean, thank you, man, for joining me today. Give a shout out about your podcast so everybody knows where to find you.
Absolutely. I co-host a podcast each and every week, Lucky Lefty Podcast with Malik Zaire. We're on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We always have great content. Monday today, we'll be talking about Brian Kelly's press conference. Wednesday, we do our mix show where we preview the next game for Notre Dame, and then we start previewing the NFL week that's coming up. And then Friday, I think this Wednesday, we'll have a special guest, former Notre Dame player Ian Williams.
Nice.
Join us and talk a little NFL and college football. And then Fridays, we give you our keys to the game to get a victory. And that's it. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Lucky Lefty Podcast. You can follow the channel on YouTube. Subscribe. We appreciate you. And Lucky Lefty Podcast via the A2S network. It's also available on Apple Podcasts.
Nice.
You search A2S network. Lucky Lefty Podcast will pop up right there for you on Apple Podcasts as well. So we love you guys. You guys are the forerunners for us when it comes to great content. And we look up to you and Brian. And thank you all for the opportunity to be a part of Irish Breakdown and just kind of be brothers in this Notre Dame content game.
Absolutely, man. I love having you. It's always fun to mix it up and have you on the show, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. And so that's going to do it for this edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, hit that like, and then make sure you check out that Lucky Lefty Podcast because it's good stuff over there. I can attest to that as I have listened as well. So make sure you guys check that out. And we will talk to you guys next time on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.